So, first of all, thank you all for being here today, and congratulations on the groundwork and the foundation that you've been laying. And Tatiana, I got to tell you that anytime you give a speech, if you give a shout out to your parents, that's a really good thing. It's a very smart move. So I will be mercifully brief, except to say that I didn't know that much about the career and vocational and technical school world until I ran for governor. And one of the things about running for office is you have this really unique opportunity to get completely outside whatever the traditional paths and circumstances you've traveled through are, and to get into a lot of areas and places and spaces where you learn new things. And I think the first school I visited was Southeastern Voc Tech. And first thing I did when I got there was I met with the staff there in a building that was behind the school that was actually built by the kids at the school. And then we walked through the school and had a chance to talk to a bunch of students and a bunch of teachers in a whole variety of different disciplines. And the message I kept hearing over and over again was actually quite consistent with what Tatiana talked about, which is for most of the kids who were there, it was the first time for them anyway that they got the connection between education, purpose, and work. And the fields that they had chosen to move into, in many cases, had been ones that directly related to what they thought they wanted to be doing later on in life. And they were completely jazzed about what it meant and what the opportunity was. And most of them said point blank, until I got here, none of this made a heck of a lot of sense. And now it does. And after that, I visited Blackstone Valley Tech, and I visited Shawsheen Tech, and I visited Essex Aggie, and I visited several others. I didn't get anywhere near 63. Tim. Did you really visit 63? 64. Well, he's had a few more years to do this than I have. So that was point number one. And I really began to significantly appreciate what these schools brought to the table and the excitement that I could feel in both the kids and the faculty as I traveled around them. And then I actually won the election, much to the surprise of many of my friends. And I went to my first National Governors Association conference in February after we took office and in Washington. And we had this big, long conversation about economic development with about the 40 some odd governors who were there. And at one point, the question got asked to every governor one at a time, what's the number one impediment to economic growth in your state? And as I watched this process play out, you think about taxes and regulation and healthcare costs and energy prices, and there's a million different things you can think of when you think about this. Really bad governors, but that one didn't come up. The number one issue that came up over and over and over again from these folks was skills, workforce skills, over and over and over. Number one, ahead of everything else. And that then led to this whole notion of a skills cabinet, hence asking the secretaries of Labor and Workforce Development, Education, and Housing and Economic Development to work together to create an approach and a strategy to skill building and skill development, recognizing that this has an enormous role to play, not just in economic development, but human capital development, and a way and a path for people to find a place, a path, a career that works for them. And in a time when we have so many people who are concerned about inequality, at a time when we have so many concerns about people's ability to find work that can both sustain themselves and help them raise a family. Every time I would talk to people about the types of jobs and the types of opportunities that are associated with a lot of the programming that's involved in these schools, the numbers I would hear with respect to where you would start and where you could go were really significant. I mean, when I'm out in the Pioneer Valley and I'm talking to all those precision manufacturing folks, and they're talking about folks starting at 60 or 80K and being able to make 150 after a few years. I mean, I'm sorry. That's real. And when you hear people talk over and over again about the number of jobs that are going to be available in these spaces and the average age of the people who currently work in a lot of these spaces, I mean, the average age of the average plumber is like my age, just getting friggin' up there. And then there's the old joke about the plumber and the doctor. Doctor has trouble with his sink, calls the plumber, plumber comes over, spends about an hour, fixes it, gives him a bill for $800. The doctor looks at it and says, $800 an hour? I don't make $800 an hour. To which the plumber says, I didn't when I was a doctor either. Which brings me to another one of my points. I don't want to ever hear anybody use the word middle skill ever again. Okay? Never, ever, ever. These are high skills, critical skills. And the jobs associated with them can really move the needle in a big way for families, for communities, and for the Commonwealth. And that's why, as part of this economic development bill that we're going to file shortly, we have a $75 million capital program as part of that for career and technical schools. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about what the right number was here, okay? And I don't know what the right number was, but we figured that was at least a good place to start. If that turns out to be too much, okay. But if it turns out that people have even more better good ideas associated with this, then, frankly, we'll find a way to do more. Because I really do believe, and this administration believes, that this is a huge opportunity for us to do some really good things for a lot of people. And it's a win-win-win in a way that you just don't see it that often. And the other thing you should all know is, in addition to that, we're going to file about an $8 million number in our House 2 budget, which we'll also file next week, which will be able to expand some of the work in STEM and career schools as well, and tech and vocational education as well. But we're, in my opinion, sort of still in what I would call the early innings of this game. This is a place we're continuing to learn about, but it's an area we clearly want to make investments in because we believe the human capital opportunities here are enormous. I know that's a big, boring, sterile word, but the goal here is to help people like those kids I met the first time I went to Southeastern Voc Tech, who said to me, it finally makes sense, this connection between, as you put it so beautifully, Tatiana, the learning and the earning and the opportunity. And the more we can do to build on what I think is a terrific collection of players in this space already to do more, the better off we're going to be. Better off kids are going to be, better off families are going to be, better off communities are going to be, better off the Commonwealth's going to be. And this is a tremendous resource, a tremendous asset. It's one I think we have sometimes not truly appreciated how significant a role it can play in the future for our Commonwealth, for our economy, and for our young people. And I just want you to know this administration, you have our full attention, and this is a place we want to do more.